I'll have to try and figure out what the problem is. Okay, Shelly asked a question from yesterday.
Except the rabbis made these decrees or reserves or whatever. Is it like the Sanhedrin that all got together and did it, or did rabbis? We all talked about different locations having different reserves and different.
It depends.
So who decides?
Generally, it would be the Sanhedrin would decide that.
But then it would be one for all versus the next Sanhedrin is not going to say, well, you guys over here in Gaza don't have to worry about it. You guys over here in the north have to worry about it.
Listen, there could have been local Sanhedrins makes decrees. That was just a local nature.
Like there's a COR.
But the bigger things that we all keep obviously was the Sanhedrin.
So it's
Like muksa, things like that.
When we say a bigger court, a higher court would be.
That would be
Sanhedrin.
generally the Sanhedrins. What?
The court wouldn't have any more people than the bigger Sanhedrin. There's 71.
It could be smarter people. And there were a lot of students, a lot of scholars.
I'm trying to understand who decided.
Okay, I can't hear Shelly. Can you repeat the question?
Too long.
Click on the teeny X on the top right to get rid of the blue background.
The teeny X on the
Yeah.
far right. Go to the far right. Yeah.
Okay, so that helps that. Okay, but we still can't hear anybody. Shelly wanted to know who made all these decrees. Who exactly made the decrees? Was it the Sanhedrin? So would it be a Sanhedrin? Would it be greater? How can you have greater numbers? I think you could have like greater numbers in scholars. Or you could have like, when there's a, yeah, but it depends on the degree of intelligence. Some were smarter. Generally, you didn't have that, but things, or if the reason changed, then it doesn't have to be smarter. So let's say with muksa, it depended on the wealth of the people and different things, and there's different reasons switched. So, but that's a good question. How could you have another Sanhedrin that would be bigger in number than a previous Sanhedrin? That's a good question. Okay, let's.
Already press the OK also at the bottom. Use cookies, the black part.
Okay, did that help me?
Yeah, well, hopefully. There you go.
I'll just use the cookies.
Well, I don't know. Either way, I don't know why I can't hear anybody. But that's par for the course because this computer's just been giving me all kinds of troubles. Nobody asked questions in the last question. There weren't a lot of people. Okay, let's begin. Let's get going over here. Now, what's going on?
You're right there. In King. Go back.
Vatam shetzricha. Where's Vatam?
No, you would in King. Kol hadinim Mishne.
We did that.
Okay.
Vatam. Here we go. Vatam shetzricha lichtos hamachlokes anofelas ben shnei adeos. Why do we have to put down a machlokes in the Mishnah to have two opinions?
Right. When we go by
Umash Omer, as which I will say, Shalachas elu nichtavu psukos shem machlokes. We're saying that if we said that the laws were decided and there was no machlokes, remember they voted on it, they decided. And we push away the chacham, shein halacha gamosa, that halacha is not like him. So why would we have to put it down at all in the Mishnah? If we paskin like this and not like that, so why did we put another opinion down at all? Just say the opinion we go with. But we have long-term needs. Efshir, it's possible. What if, remember, you have people who had a different opinion. There was a machlokes, and there was a minority opinion. Now that minority opinion still felt it was their opinion. You have to remember, just because you lose doesn't mean you can't have an opinion. Doesn't mean you render the law differently, but this is your Kabbalah. This is your opinion. I believe my opinion is correct. You guys outvoted me. Okay, majority wins. But I'm still allowed to have such an opinion. Now remember, as time changes and the logic of each generation changes, the minority opinion, maybe one day could be a majority opinion. So what happens if one day this rabbi gets up? And let's say we only wrote one law, the final law, and this guy gets up one day and says the opposite of the law. I say, where are you coming from? You just that's no such law. No, 3 generations back in my yeshiva, my father's yeshiva, that was how we held. Okay, it might not be that that's the law, but that's what we held. So therefore, it's not going to come out that this guy's just making up something of his own. Okay, so now if he comes up with that, or omimishu nota ladaito, or someone who leans towards that opinion, okay, v'tikana sveika b'nafsho seinu. Now we have doubts. We never can say, how could this person have such a tradition? And he's usually an honest guy. Shedavar ploni aser. He says you're not allowed to do it. Mishnah says mutter. Oh, heavily the opposite. So what's going on over here? In other words, we want to keep the integrity of scholarship going on. In other words, there is important to know the minority opinion. And the minority opinion is still an opinion. And remember, there's 70 faces to the Torah. And there's, the Medrash says when Moshe came down, Hashem said, listen, there's 49 reasons to say this is mutter, 49 reasons to say it's us. So Moshe says, so what's the law? Hashem says, you guys figure it out. Doesn't matter to me. So it could be a later generation may, see the logic a little different. So therefore things can change. So you always keep it on the books to keep the integrity, even though it's the minority opinion. And he says, well, that's what I heard from my Rabbi. Remember, they weren't always in close contact with each other. They could have been far-flung places around the world. And the guy could say, this is what you're making up your own halachas? I'm not making my own halachas. What do you mean? The law's been like this for years. I know, but so now if the name of the minority opinion is recorded in the Mishne, they know the guy got it from somewhere. It's not the law, but he still has it. Now, and because of this, now that you've written every possible opinion, we're closing up the breach. When somebody will say, listen, I don't know about you guys, but I have a Kabbalah, it's awesome. Number one will say, we agree with you 100%. But that's according to Rabbi so-and-so from 3 generations ago. But many argued him then. Oh, ploni cholak alav, or somebody else argued, or the law is like the one who argued with him. Maybe his logic was better. Or maybe something else supports his opinion. So it's always good to keep the intellectual integrity going. So we don't have people that are really honest people going to think they're liars. So we know we keep a record of who's the minority, who's that opinion. I mean, there's more to that, because then you have to also be able to have consistency in opinion. Someone's saying something here and something there and something that, because they say, wait a minute, how could you say this? Aren't you contradicting yourself from somewhere else? And that causes a further refinement of the halacha to try to say, no, well, really, to make it clear, it works like this, not like that. So that's that's one reason. Now, how about avolatam she'tzricha lichot divrei yochid v'rabim? So let's say you have a classic machlokes, Abaye and Rava, or in the Mishnayos, Reish Lakish, Rabbi Yochanan, whatever. You have different people. But why do you have to have, when it's a minority, one against a majority? Why do you have to write that? Divrei yochid v'rabim. Why? Because that's for sure not going to be any halacha. Because sometimes the law is like the yochid. If his logic is more straightforward, even sometimes under certain circumstances, you listen to a yochid, though many argue. Sometimes in certain situations, they say, Kedai Rabbi Shimon. In certain situations, let's say by a guna or something, you know what? We can rely on a minority opinion sometimes. So we always have to know, and sometimes, for reasons that Rambam's not getting into now, that we would go with a minority opinion, where sometimes it's a more understandable opinion, and maybe in certain times that opinion would be more applicable. Okay, finally, the last question. How come sometimes they give a rabbi's opinion and then they tell us he retracted from his opinion? So just tell us the retracted opinion. Don't tell us the first opinion. To say Beis Shammai says this, Beis Hillel said, and it writes, and Beis Hillel retracted to go to Beis Shammai. So just at the end of the day, just say what Beis Shammai said. Finished. You know why? To show how much these rabbis loved the truth. And how righteousness and faith have so much power. So you see, this is something we don't see nowadays. These great honorable people, these outstanding people in their wisdom, when they see that the ones arguing with them have better logic than them, and they're looking into deeply is better than them, they'll admit it. They will go back to that other opinion. So therefore, if we see that a big tzaddik was able to be humble enough to say, I'm wrong and he's right.
That was the B'nai B'sei, right?
Kol shekain shara nash brasam emes. So if anybody else sees the truth, noita in baldino, and he sees that really it goes to the other guy, the guy who's arguing with, yekamoke nota lemes. He's going to also go to the truth. Lo ik shar, if he won't be stubborn. That's what the pasuk says. Tzedek, tirdov. Run after the truth. So it's very important. That's why, for example, many times in Shas, Rashi will say, and I don't know the interpretation of this pasuk. So if you don't know, why are you telling us? The answer is, it's important to know to say you don't know when you don't know. That's an important thing. So we see that Beis Hillel could be moted to Beis Shammai, so you could be moted to somebody else as well.
So maybe this is where the modern day courts get the idea to have the dissenting opinion.
Well, yeah, this is maybe where the modern day courts decide to keep the dissenting opinion. That will fit into the first thing.
Yeah.
Because at least, it's an opinion. Somebody of intelligence said it. And, the times didn't fit into that opinion, but it makes a certain degree of sense. Okay. That's the rabbi saying, have a model emes. You should concede to the truth. What does that mean to say? Even though you can give certain ways out, you're master of logic, you can somehow spin things that you don't have to capitulate. But if he honestly knew he was wrong, but if you see the truth of your friend goes against your claim and you see your claim is weak, or you could really try to conceal the truth, still they didn't do that. He'd retract his words, and he'd give up the fight. Very important lesson to know when to give in. Okay, that takes care of why we're writing the opinions that are the losers, so to speak. Okay, now what's going to happen from section 15 on for quite a while is Rambam is going to say, why did Rabbi Yehuda Nasi divide the 6 orders of Mishne as he did? And why did he divide every Masechta in the order, in the Seder, in the order of that Seder? So really, if we really would learn this well, you could easily memorize all the Masechtas and know the order of them. Because you just got to know the 6 orders. Every order has anywhere from 7 to 10, 11 Masechtas. Yeah. So if you just know the 6 main orders and the Masechtas, you'll figure out why Shas is the way it is. So that's the next thing. Because when the author, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, decided to make this composite book, he saw fit to divide it in 6 divisions. The first division has with mitzvahs that grow from the ground, like kilayim, shmita, orla, Shrumas, Maestras, Vishar Chukem Matanas, or other gifts that come from the field. Okay? That's the first order, which is Zroim. Hachelik Hasheni, the second order, is Beperek Zman Hashana, dealing with the different times of the year. V'Moedas and the holidays. Umashis Chayv Bahem, and what you're obligated to do. V'Ishtanas Mipashtehem, and what are the differences and unique laws for each holiday. V'Asr Bahem, V'Mutar, what's not allowed and what is allowed to do. And what he felt what was important to put in every section of those laws about them. And that is Moed. The third one is the bilos of intimacy. And what's the difference of laws between men and women? Kigon, for example, Yibum, Chalitza, Ksuva, Kiddushin, Gittin, and what should be said in each one of those areas. So that's Nashim. Fourth is the dinim urivas, about civil laws and disputes. Between people, ubischoros, and with commerce, ubemasa b'matan, sales and purchases, ubeshutfas, partnerships, hakakos, land, badomalo, and similar to that, and that is nizikin. Chelik Chamishi, the fifth part is Binyane Karbanos, relating to the Karbanos. The way the laws change depending on the Korban. So that's Kachim. Chelik Hashishi, the sixth one is Binyan Taharas Vabcham, regarding purity and the lack of purity, and that is Taharas. Okay, now the Korah called Chelek Mehem. So each one of these orders was called a Seder. It's called a Seder, an order. That's what it's called, the Shisha Sidrei Mishne, the 6 orders of the Mishnah. Hachelek Harisha Nikra Seder Sroim. The first one is called Sroim, literally means seeds. Okay. Give me a second.
Okay.
One more. Nothing. Try again.
Okay. I think we're there.
One more. Okay. V'hasheni, the second one, Seder Moed, is the appointed times. V'shlishi Seder Noshim, women. V'arvi Seder Nizikin, fourth one is Nizikin, damages. V'chamishi Seder Kachim, v'shishi Seder Taras. And the Siman is Sman Nokat. That's the mnemonic. Sroim, Moed, Noshim, Nizikin, Kachim, Taras. So that's a good way to remember Sman Nokat. It's interesting if this is already mentioned in the Hakdama of the Tikkunei HaZohar. And also, a Gemara in Shabbos, Taf Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph, bases it on a pasuk in Yeshaya, on the pasuk, V'hoyu emunas itecha chosein yeshuos chachmos v'deos. And the Gemara in Shabbos says, emunas, that is the order of Zroim, because when you're planting, you have to be a believer in Hashem. Or the amuna of that you separate maestros and the give tzedakah. Itecha is word for times, ace, that's Seder Moed. Chosein is Noshim, because Chosein is from expression of inheritors, and inheritors only come when a woman gives birth to people. Yeshua's salvation is Nezikim, because Hashem has to save us from Nezikim. Chachma is the Seder Kachim, because it's very hard, you have to be very smart to really understand Kachim. And then finally, Vidas is Taharas, because Tara needs to discriminate. You need Havdalah to discriminate between Tum and Tahara, and without Das, you can't have Havdalah. So the Gemara itself has already hinted to all this. So now the question is, why do we start with one group and not with another group? So I think it'd be a good place to stop it here, because it's a whole new section. It's fascinating. He's going to tell you why every Masechta is in the order it is in every order. And he's going to tell you why the orders. Yes, so really it will be very easy to remember why Zroim has to come before Moed, and why the different Masechtas and Sroim are in the order that they're in. So theoretically, if you review this a couple times, you should easily know all the Masechtas in order. Sorry for the technical problems. We hope to solve this by next week. No class tomorrow night. We're busy taking rapid COVID tests. Okay. Have a good night. Gamar Chasima Tova.